With Pokemon Legends ZA coming out later this year, pretty soon we'll be saying goodbye to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for a pretty decent amount of time. So I thought, what would be a better send-off than to do one last playthrough challenge? So today, we will be beating Pokemon Violet using only baby Pokemon. Or try, we're gonna see if it's possible. Now in Pokemon Violet, there are 7 baby Pokemon that we can catch. Igglybuff, Happiny, Riolu, Pichu, Azurill, Bonsly, and Toxel. Now despite the fact that we have 7 options, and we will catch them all, we will only use the same number of Pokemon as our opponent for each major battle in the game. Up until the very end at least. This means if a gym leader has 3, I will also only use 3. So with that, let's start a new game and see what these baby Pokemon can do. So before we can do anything, we have to play through the tutorial of the game basically, so we'll just kind of skip through all that, you know, we find Miraidon, go through the cave, give it a sandwich, battle Nemona once or twice, not a huge deal. But after meeting Nemona and Arven, we actually get to go ahead and catch our first team member, and we're going to go ahead and catch Azurill here. I wanted to catch Azurill first because I figure it would help with the early battles like Cloth with access to a few water type moves. It's at this point I also box Quaxly, which is who we chose as our starter, because I kind of assumed that the Fuecoco line will be easier for us to defeat with the baby Pokemon we're going to be using. After we go ahead and catch that Azurill, we make our way to the Gate of Mesaguza, and this is where we have to battle Nemona for real for the first time. And unfortunately, Azurill's not very good at this point, so we actually lose this battle. But luckily, you don't actually have to win this battle, so we can continue on into the city just like normal. And before we do anything else, we actually have to go and stop at a shop called Delibird Presents, because this shop sells Everstones, and we're gonna need all of them. From here, we go up the stairs and we meet Penny for the first time and battle Team Star. And unfortunately, because all we have is Azurill, we lose this battle too. But this battle we do have to beat, so we have to go and train up a little bit. So we wind up training up to about level 10, teaching Azurill Bubble Beam as well, and also go out to catch ourselves an Igglybuff and a Bonsly. And Happiny, kind of. It took an hour and a half to find this Happiny, by the way. But with 4 team members now, we can finally go ahead and take on Team Star again, and this time we beat them and we actually get our Terra Orb. After our battle with Team Star, we can go ahead and head up to the school, and we can run around and do all the school stuff. Once we have all of our missions and go ahead and get shown our room, we finally get to the speech where we learn about the treasure hunt. And now that the school stuff is out of the way, all we have to do is have a talk with Arven, Cassiopeia, and Nemona, and then we are free to roam around and start taking on our badges. And we have 18 of them. Before we go ahead and take on any of the badges, however, we're going to start by going west out of the city to get our last 3 team members. It's here where we go ahead and catch our Pichu, Toxel, and our Riolu. However, Toxel and Riolu are too high a level right now, so we're not going to use them so that our early battles aren't too easy. And we also went ahead and decided that Happiny was going to be the one that stays in the box, because I'm pretty happy with our current team. From here, we need to make a decision on which badge to go for first, and we decided to go for Cloth. This is because we'll get the sprint ability on Miraidon, which is going to come in handy throughout the rest of the playthrough. Now for the Titan battles, there's only one Pokemon, so we will only be using one Pokemon, and the Pokemon I'm taking with me to start is Azurill, because I figure the water type moves will help. Unfortunately, we lost, so we decided to go ahead and train up to level 15. Once we hit level 15, we take it on again, but we lose again. But we weren't going to let that stop us. I knew we could win, so we go ahead and take it on, and we lower its attack stat with Charm, like all of the way, and then that's what allows us to beat it. Now that the first phase was done, we can go into the second phase, which is a lot easier because we have Arven's help, and we take down the Cloth Titan. That is our first Titan badge down, and the Dash ability unlocked. From here, we decide to go ahead and take on the Bug Gym next. For this gym, we decided to use Bonsly, Igglybuff, and Pichu. The gym puzzle was very easy, it's never really been hard, but it is quite fun. And now we're officially ready to take on Katie, the bug-type gym leader. This battle was actually a little harder than I thought. We actually lost a couple of times, which is unfortunate, but in the end, Bonsly was able to get the win, but just barely. But with Bonsly's help, we were able to get the first gym badge, the Bug Badge. After the gym battle, we go ahead and get a call from Nemona, and she goes ahead and talks us up just a little bit. And from there, we decide we might as well go ahead and take on our first Starfall badge. And of course, this will be the Dark badge, because it's the easiest. When we find the first Starfall base, this is where we go ahead and meet Clive, or Clavel, it's the same guy. Now, the Starfall badges are going to work a little differently with the number of Pokemon we bring in, because we have to use 3 for the first part of the challenge anyway, and you aren't allowed to swap when they bring out the Starfall mobile. So for these first couple of battles with the Starfall badges, we're going to have 3 Pokemon on our team. For this battle, we decided to go with Igglybuff, Azurill, and Riolu. Unfortunately, we do have to battle a Team Star Grunt first, which I was surprised because we actually lost, so we decided to go ahead and train our Pokemon up to level 20. Unfortunately, when we tried again at level 20, we lost again because my attacks keep missing. But we tried to be persistent, and we kept losing, so what we ended up doing is swapping Riolu for Pichu, and then we tried again, and we finally won. This will be the team that we keep for the rest of this base. Now for the Starfall badges, the first thing we're going to have to do is take on their Star Barrage challenge, and these are actually pretty easy, so we shouldn't have any problem beating them, except I failed the first time because I completely forgot we needed to heal, so we lost. But we beat it on the second go because we remembered that they were vending machines, actually the first time I've ever had to use them in a playthrough. After we beat the first Starfall Star Barrage challenge, we officially meet Giacomo. He's the leader of this Team Star base. We go ahead and challenge him to a battle, but we unfortunately end up losing. After remembering that Poniard is actually a Steel type as well, we go ahead and remove Igglybuff and Azurill from the team because they are Fairy types. Before we go ahead and take it on, we go ahead and teach Low Kick to Riolu and Bonsly, and taught Electro Ball to Pichu, and also taught Rock Smash to Riolu as well. So now we're going to be going in with Riolu, Bonsly, and Pichu. And we go ahead and try again, and we lost. But we went ahead and tried one more time, and we won using a singular Super Potion on Riolu. Not proud that I had to use heals already, but it beats over-leveling by a bunch. And with that, the first Starfall badge is ours. It's after getting this badge where we actually get to have a talk with Penny for real for the first time. She gives us some cool items, and we're ready to move on. From here I decided it might be a good idea to focus on upgrading Miraidon a little bit, so we tried to go after 2 more Titans. And the first one we decided to go for was Orthworm. For this Titan we will wind up using Riolu, of course, because it's a fighting type, makes battling the Orthworm really easy. However, we died literally immediately, because I forgot how strong Orthworm is. We actually ended up looking at the level of the wild Pokemon around, and once we saw how high a level they were, we decided, you know what, maybe it would be good to start off with Bombardier instead. So we go right for the big bird, and we decided to try it at level 20 to see how it goes. And for this battle, because it's a flying type, we're actually going to go with Pichu, but unfortunately Pichu literally gets one shot, so we had to train up to level about 25 to 26. Once we hit that level, we're officially ready to try and take it on again, and well, of course, we get critical hit one shot this time, but we did a ton of training, so we should be able to beat it. And I should mention that the current way we're training our Pokemon up is through fast battling and sandwiches, so the training isn't too hard just yet. But hoping that it doesn't crit one-shot me a second time, we go ahead and take on Bombardier again, and this time we actually beat the first stage using a bunch of Nuzzles. With that, we go into the second phase with Arven, beat it pretty easy, and the second Titan badge is ours, along with the swimming ability. Now that we've taken on a second Titan, we officially get to see the saddest story in all of Pokemon. This is where we meet Mabosstiff. And this is such an awesome storyline. I love Arven and Mabosstiff, it's just so good. You really can't beat it. Now, I was originally going to go for Orthworm, but out of fear of way over leveling, we decided to hold off on doing the next Titan, and just do another couple gym badges instead. To see how we stand currently, we go ahead and take on Brassius immediately with our current team level. For this, we're going to use Riolu, Igglybuff, and Toxel. But of course, before we can take on the gym challenge, we have to have a little chat with Nemona first. A little talking later, and we go ahead and take on the gym challenge, which was actually super easy, because luckily we didn't have to battle any of the Sunflora, which I was a little worried about, because I couldn't really be bothered, I didn't want to. Unfortunately, just as I expected, we actually out-leveled his team by a pretty decent amount, which was an accident, because we had to level up for the Bombardier, so it's a good thing we didn't go for the Orthworm first. This battle was really easy. Toxel literally one-hit KO swept his entire team, except for a Sudowoodo because it had Sturdy. But the good news is, the granny in the background loved it. Look at her go. She's having a great time. But with that, we officially obtained our second gym badge. After this battle, we go ahead and meet Hassel for the first time, who's one of the Elite Four members. He gives us a little pep talk, and then lets us go about our business. With how easy the last badge was, we decided to go straight for the next badge because I was very worried about over-leveling for Iono's battle too. However, before we can take this on, we actually get ambushed by Nemona for a battle, and unfortunately we already had our team of 4 set up, so we only have these 4 to work with. We went in this battle with Riolu, Bonsly, Igglybuff, and Toxel, so I hope that's enough. This battle was awful because her Rockruff set up 3 double teams. But luckily Bonsly was able to take it out in the end, and Bonsly also took care of her Pawmi, and I brought out Toxel to take care of her Crocalor. But unfortunately it wasn't quite enough, and we had to come in and finish with a Flail from Bonsly to win the match. But we did beat Nemona this time, that's good. I don't think you needed to win this battle, but I'm glad we did. After a quick heal, we get to go ahead and take on Nemono's gym challenge, which is pretty easy. And we also decided to go ahead and put a berry on Toxel, in the hopes that maybe we'd be able to use Belch later on. Speaking of items, we also decided to give a hard stone to Bonsly, to increase the power of its rock-type moves. So now we're ready to go ahead and take on Iono for the first time, and unfortunately this did not go over well because just about every bad thing that could possibly happen, happened. Everything from missed moves to paralysis and perfect timed loss of confusion, it was awful. We ended up failing this battle and trying again, which unfortunately we lost again due to critical hits and paralysis. It's here we decide, we're not over-leveled, we should probably level up just a little bit. So we go ahead and train our team up to level 30. Once we get to level 30, we go ahead and take on Iono again, but again lose to paralysis. I don't know why that keeps happening. But I knew we could beat it this time. We go in with a berry on Toxel so that I can use Belch against her Belly Bolt, which has been the biggest problem this whole time. But between Belch and Confusion, we were actually able to beat the Belly Bolt and put the Mismagius to sleep to beat that as well, and with that, the 3rd gym badge is also ours. That battle was a lot rougher than all of the other battles so far, but there are definitely some much harder battles to come. After we go ahead and beat this gym, we actually go ahead and meet Geeta, who is the top champion of the Paldea region. She also gives us a little pep talk, and from here we have to decide where we go next. With beating the 3rd badge, we assumed we'd be a high enough level for the next Starfall badge, and we go ahead and make our way over to the Fire base. After our talk with Clive, we have to decide which Pokemon will be joining us for this fight. For this base, we decide to use Riolu, Bonsly, and Azurill. Of course, before we can get into the base, we do have to take on the Grunt outside, but this battle went over pretty easily. After a quick heal, we're ready to go ahead and take on the Star Barrage, and this time we remembered heals and we did not fail. After the Star Barrage, we go ahead and meet the leader of this base, Mila. Now Mila's got a pretty okay team, her Torkoal's pretty chonky, but I didn't expect this battle to be very hard. Unfortunately, we did lose the first battle, however, to a burn, which is unfortunate. Unfortunately, Azurill's water-type moves aren't stab because it's a normal fairy type, so we actually decided to go ahead and swap Azurill for Toxel, and we were finally able to beat her Torkoal without getting burned. And with that, we go ahead and bring in Bonsly for the Starmobile, and it was able to take that on pretty easily. It literally just beat the entire Starmobile with nothing but Rock Tombs. And with that, the 2nd Starfall badge is ours. Of course, after the badge, we run into Penny again, and she gives us a lot of Pokemon materials, which will come in handy a little later. Now that we've taken on a couple badges and a couple of Starfall badges, I think we might finally be high enough level to take on the 3rd Titan. We make our way over to Earthworm, and of course we can only use one Pokemon, so we're going to go ahead and use Riolu still. And I was right, we were officially high enough level, and we made it through the first phase. It only used Wrap on us, so it wasn't too difficult. From here, we go ahead and go into the 2nd phase, and a couple of low kicks later, we go ahead and we beat it. After finding the Herba Mystica with Arven in the cave, we get our 3rd Titan badge and the jumping ability. It's at this time we actually decide to start looking up the levels ahead of time to make sure that we aren't over-leveling or under-leveling ourselves for battles. This will also help us decide a good order in which to take on the next badges. So that means next, we get to take on the 4th gym leader, Kofu, which is a water-type leader. And we actually wind up going straight there, only to have to chase Kofu to Porto Marinata to do his gym challenge. But we can't take that on until we beat his assistant, which is kind of weird. He's just kind of like his bodyguard, I guess. His bodyguard was pretty easy though, and we beat him. And Pichu and Toxel took down his Floatzel, and Riolu took out his Clauncher using Counter, which is probably the only time I've ever used Counter to win a battle. Or at all. I don't think I've ever used that move. After beating his bodyguard, I get to go ahead and take on the real gym challenge, which is a bidding war for some seaweed from Hoenn. This went over pretty easy though, and we ended up getting it, and we're able to go ahead and go back to Cascarafa for our gym battle. For this battle, we'll need 3 Pokemon, and we decide to take Toxel, Pichu, and Riolu with us. Upon going into the gym building, however, we run into Hassel, who introduces us to Rika, another Elite Four member. They wish us good luck and praise our battle skills, and then we're able to take on Kofu for the first time. Unfortunately though, we are not a high enough level for this battle and we wind up losing pretty quickly. So training to level 35 is what we must do. After we get to level 35, we also add a muscle band to Riolu, which increases the damage of his physical moves. During this battle, Riolu actually learns Force Palm, which is really good because that gives us a chance at paralyzing the opponent Pokemon. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough though, and we went ahead and lost again. But I think I can beat this battle. So we go ahead and try again, and we lose again, but then I realized that it's been sandstorming out the whole time, so I waited out the sandstorm and tried again without it. And luckily, with no sandstorm, we were able to win with 5 HP left. A pretty unfortunate battle when sandstorms can affect the outcome, and it's not even your opponent that caused the sandstorm, but we were able to get there in the end and we got our 4th gym badge. And with that gym badge under our belt, we officially have half of the badges in the game, which is 9. We have 4 gym badges, 3 Titan badges, and 2 Starfall badges. Of course, after this gym battle, we run into Nemona again for a quick chat, and it's from here that we go ahead and decide to pay Atticus a visit in the Tag Tree Thicket. Now, Atticus is a poison type leader, so what we actually decide to do is go on the hunt for some Wooper Slime so we can teach some ground type moves to our Pokemon. We ended up teaching Mud Shot to Azurill and Bonsly. And to test it out, we went ahead and gave Bonsly a soft sand to hold as well to increase that power of those moves even further. For this fight, we decided to go ahead and box Toxel and Pichu, and we're going to go in with Igglybuff, Azurill, Riolu, and Bonsly. But of course, before we can go in, we have to have a chat with Clive and battle the grunt outside. This battle was pretty easy though, we won really quickly. But now it was time for the Starfall Barrage, which these are pretty easy now that I remember to use the vending machines. This was not going to be an easy one because we have no super effective stab damage, but we decided to go ahead and take it on for the first time anyway. Which didn't go very well, so we actually decided to go ahead and train up to level 40, because we lost pretty quickly. It's around about now that we get to go ahead and find a new spot to train our Pokemon, and we wind up settling on just outside of Medali on Dark types, because Dark type Pokemon are the only real way to train up Igglybuff and Azurill effectively right now. We wind up swapping Igglybuff and Azurill for Pichu and Toxel, and then we go ahead and try the battle again at level 40. Bonsly was able to take out the Skuntank, Bonsly and Riolu combined were able to beat the Revavroom, the first one anyway. Pichu was able to beat Muck using some cheese strategies of paralysis and confusion, and then Toxel beat the Starmobile using like 15 potions. There was really no other way of effectively beating the Starfall Mobile without having to use potions, unfortunately. I could have leveled up to be able to defeat it so I didn't have to use potions, but then that takes the fun out of all of the next battles because I'd be way too overleveled and I'd just one-shot literally everything. But with that, we finally beat Atticus and the 3rd Starfall badge is ours. After we go ahead and beat that badge, of course we have another chat with Clive and Cassiopeia, and then Penny gives us some more Pokemon materials, of course, you know, the same thing that happens after all of them. And after looking at our list of opponents, it looks like Larry, the 5th gym leader, is up next. Of course we go ahead and try and take him on immediately, and for this fight we go ahead and take in Riolu, Toxel, and Bonsly. But before we can do anything, Nemona of course barges in and tells us that she wants to battle after we beat the gym. She just does not give us a break, does she? But after that we're able to go ahead and take on the gym challenge, and I was actually able to remember off the top of my head the secret order, and we passed it really easily. I'm actually really surprised I was able to remember the whole thing, because it's been a while. But with that, we're finally ready to go ahead and take on Larry. Riolu beat Kamala pretty easily, and we swapped so we didn't wind up getting put to sleep. The Dunsparce wound up taking out Toxel, but it went down to Riolu after we brought that back in. Mainly because it lived with 1 HP, because it loves me. With that, we go ahead and bring in Bonsly for a Staraptor, so we can slow it down using our Rock Tombs, and then Riolu was able to come in and outspeed it with a Force Palm to win us the battle. With that, we have beaten Larry and obtained our 5th gym badge. After this gym, Gita meets us for a chat, but unfortunately, Nemona interrupts us. And from here, we actually get tossed immediately into a battle with Nemona. Now, because Larry only has 3 Pokemon, we currently also only have 3 Pokemon, and she has 4, and that's not great. So we went ahead and tried our best. Riolu beat Lycanroc, Toxel beat Goomy, and Bonsly beat Palmo, and then everything, unfortunately, lost to the Skeledirge. We ended up losing the battle, but of course, luckily, we were able to still continue on with the story. Now, looking at the levels, we actually decided that we'd go for the next gym right away, despite the fact that we're actually 1 level under-leveled, but we thought we'd give it a try anyway. It's here we taught Bonsly Rock Slide and Sucker Punch as well. Once we head into the gym building, we actually randomly run into Jacques, who gives us a lucky egg. This is kind of random, but I'm not going to complain because a lucky egg could come in real handy for training later. With that, we're able to go ahead and take on the gym challenge. Now this gym challenge is interesting because it's double battles. So this should actually be kind of fun. We were able to beat the first battle with only 2 losses, which was nice. We were able to beat the second battle, but we did have to revive Bondsley, and then we beat the third battle only losing Pichu. But with those 3 battles out of the way, the gym test had been completed. And now we're ready to go ahead and take on Rhyme for the first time. For this fight we have Pichu, Toxel, Bondsley, and Igglybuff. And this battle went over pretty well because Bondsley has Sturdy, so some fighting later, we get some Graveyard dancing, which is absolutely adorable, and we won having to only use 2 Hyper Potions on Bondsley in the end. With that, Rhyme has been beaten, and gym badge number 6 is ours. Now, I don't know what is with people and running into us after gym battles, but this time it's Hassel, and he meets up with us again for another little pep talk. Looking at our levels and the next people we have to take on, we decide that we have to be higher level, and we go for level 45 before we move on. It's about here that we actually need to find a new place to train, because where we were training before is no longer very efficient. So we actually go into Alfrenata Cavern and train mostly on Shelgons. We can also use the Gibble line as well, but the Gibbites are pretty strong. And oddly enough, for this, I was able to use Igglybuff and Azumarill. Who knew? Because those have been the weakest members of our team, like the entire time. After a little bit of training, we went ahead and taught Swords Dance to Riolu in place of Warcup for now, and at level 45 decided to go ahead and take on the Quaking Earth Titan. For this fight, we're going to go ahead and only use Riolu. Unfortunately, we did fail this attempt, however, only just barely. So we went ahead and tried again, and we actually beat the first phase pretty easily this time. And with Arven's help, we were able to beat Iron Treads the second attempt pretty easily. After getting some Herba Mystica and eating a sandwich, the 4th Titan badge is ours and the gliding ability. At our current level, we should actually be able to take on the 7th gym in Alfrenata. And to help out with this gym, we went ahead and taught Shadow Ball to Igglybuff. Before we can do the gym challenge, however, we actually run into Nemona again and are forced to battle. Since we already had our team set up, we're forced to fight with only Riolu, Igglybuff, Toxel, and Bondsley. At least we have the same amount of Pokemon as her this time. Riolu beat Lycanroc, and then Sliggoo takes out Igglybuff and Toxel. Then Riolu comes in to beat Sliggoo, and then Palmot defeated the rest of the team. Hooray! We lost. Unfortunately, because we were not ready for this battle. But, just like all the other Nemona battles, we don't actually have to win this one. Thank gosh, because I did not want to have to do that. Now we can finally take on the gym test. This gym test has a couple of battles, and we don't really have any decent super effective damage against psychic types, which is unfortunate. We ended up losing the first battle, unfortunately, to Bologna and Cheese Sammys. This time we go ahead and attempt again, but this time while holding berries that cure sleep. We were able to pass the second attempt because we ended up using Hyper Potions on our Pokemon so that a Medicham could take itself out by missing high jump kicks. Kind of a funny way to win a battle. But with that, the gym challenge is done, and we are free to go ahead and take on Tulip for the first time. We're going to go ahead and stick with our team for now of Riolu, Igglybuff, Toxel, and Bondsley. And this battle was not good at all. We actually lost very, very badly. I didn't even beat a single Pokemon. It was clear we needed to train more. So I tried getting everything to level 50. But now that our Pokemon are this high of a level, we're actually finally able to go and take on Chanseys and Blissies in the back of the map using Riolu. This is by far the best way to level up Pokemon and will make leveling very, very easy for the rest of the playthrough. With that, we were able to train all of our team members to level 54 to 55, with Riolu actually hitting level 59 since it was doing the battling for us. Oops, hopefully that won't come back to bite us in the butt. But we ended up going at this high because we lost very hard at like level 46 and 47. So with level 54 and 55 Pokemon, we go ahead and take on Tulip again. This time Riolu beat Farigiraf, but it died to the Gardevoir, which is unfortunate, and then the rest of our team lost to Gardevoir and Espathra. Because we don't have super effective damage and one of our best Pokemon is weak to Psychic types, we decide that the only option would be to way over level this gym, so we decide to skip it for now. So instead, we decide with this higher level, we might be high enough level to go ahead and take on the last Titan. This Titan works a little differently though, because there's an extra phase we need to beat. So because of that, we're going to take one extra Pokemon with us. We're going to go in with Riolu and Toxel. The first Pokemon we have to take down is Dondozo, but unfortunately, Toxel gets one shot, so we ended up losing the first try. I tried again replacing Toxel with Pichu, but unfortunately Pichu is also defensively pretty weak, so we get one shot as well. So it looks like this Titan will also have to wait. So I guess we have to go for the other gym badge, which is Grusha's gym. This gym is an ice type gym, so this shouldn't be as hard as the psychic one. The gym challenge was really easy to take on, it's just some snowboarding, and then we're able to go ahead and take on Grusha for the first time. For this battle, we're going to go ahead and use Riolu, Pichu, Bonsly, and Toxel. During this battle, Frostmoth actually takes down Riolu, which is unfortunate, but Bonsly takes down the Frostmoth. After that, Beartic comes in and unfortunately takes down Bonsly as well. After that, we go ahead and bring in Pichu, which takes down Beartic, and then unfortunately, Satitan takes down Pichu and Toxel. However, Toxel bought us 6 free healing turns between Satitan being fully paralyzed and it loving me. So that was really nice. So Riolu was able to come in and take down Satitan, Pichu comes in and nuzzles Altaria before going down, then Riolu was able to come in and take Altaria down with one shot with a Swords Danced Force Palm. Now luckily, Altaria missed its Hurricane, which is the only reason I think I beat it. But with that, Grusha had been beaten and our 7th gym badge has been obtained. After this gym, we go ahead and run into Rika again, who introduces us to Poppy, which is another Elite Four member. Now from here we could do a little bit more training, but I decided that it'd be worth taking on the 4th Starfall badge to see how well we hold up. We battled a trainer outside the gates, which we beat pretty easily, and then we go ahead and beat the quick battles. After the quick battles, we're ready to go ahead and take on Ortega for the first time, and for this fight, we're also going to be using Riolu, Toxel, Bonsly, and Pichu. But unfortunately, we were also too low a level for this fight. So we go ahead and decide to head outside the gates and train our Pokemon up to level 60. With that, we go ahead and try again, and Pichu was able to paralyze Azumarill before going down, and then Toxel took out literally everything else except for the last hit on the Starmobile, which Bonsly was able to come in and finish with a single Rock Tomb. With that, we beat Ortega and got the 4th Starfall badge. Of course, because it's the Starfall storyline, we have to have yet another talk with Clive, followed by Cassiopeia, and receiving some items from Penny. Looking at our levels, we're actually significantly higher than the levels of the Psychic type gym, so we decided it might finally be time for us to try and take it on again. And for this battle, we're going to use the same 4 that we used last time, except we're going to be swapping Igglybuff for Pichu. Unfortunately, we did lose the first battle, but looking at the levels, I thought that we could beat it if we just brute forced it a little bit, and in fact, we were able to do just that. Pichu and Bonsly took out Farigiraf, Gardevoir took out Toxel and Riolu unfortunately, but then Bonsly wiped the rest of the team with Sucker Punches. Who would have thought non-stab damage Sucker Punches would win the whole battle? But with that, Tulip has been beaten and we got our last gym badge. All the gyms officially out of the way. And of course waiting for us after that is Nemona and Gita, who end up telling us about the Pokemon League. We're not going to take that on just yet, of course, we do want to beat the other regular badges first. Now that we're actually a higher level, we decide that we're going to go ahead and try taking on the final Titan again. This time we're going to be bringing Pichu and Riolu. Luckily, Pichu has a speed boosting nature, so it's pretty fast, and we were actually able to beat the first phase thanks to Paralysis. And then of course the second phase with Arven went really easily with Pichu, and unfortunately Pichu ended up going down to the 3rd phase with Tatsugiri, but that's why we brought 2, even though it was actually completely unnecessary because Arven's Greedent was able to finish the last hit on it and we didn't even need Riolu. But with that, the final Titan badge is ours, along with the climbing ability. And of course, we cry over Mabosstiff and Arven real quick, as you do. But after that wholesome storyline ending, there is only one badge left to get, and that is the final Starfall boss. Before we go ahead and take on the next thing though, some new moves are in order, and we go ahead and teach Psychic and Dazzling Gleam to Igglybuff, and Volt Switch to Pikachu. We also go ahead and locate the Brick Break TM to teach to Riolu. With that, we go ahead and find the final Starfall base and take on the Grunt outside. Igglybuff beat Krogunk but lost to Primeape, and Bonsly finished off the Primeape. And now we are finally able to take on the final Starfall Barrage Challenge, which we beat pretty easily. Not too long after that, we meet Erie and get to take her on for the first time, and unfortunately, we lost. Really badly. I didn't even make it halfway through her team. So we decided we'd need to train up a little bit, and we tried to shoot for level 70. After a while, we got everything to level 70-ish except for Riolu, who was now level 78 because it was in front, of course. And we go ahead and take on Erie again. But unfortunately, that still is not high enough level, and we actually lose another few times. So we try again after hitting the mid-70s during training, and we lost again. Unfortunately, fighting types are going to be a reoccurring hard challenge for us in this playthrough. We had a couple of options, and we ended up going ahead and adding Azurill to the team, so we have a full team of 6, because otherwise we would have to train up to level 100. But with Azurill on our team, we were finally able to stand a chance. Pichu and Azurill beat Toxicroak, Igglybuff beat Passimian, Annihilate also went down, and Riolu beat Lucario, and then oddly enough, Pichu was able to take out Revavroom thanks to toughing it out like 4 times. But with that quote-unquote awesome, helpful mechanic, we finally beat the final badge of the challenge. Of course, after this, we talked to Cassiopeia again and Clive, but this time there is no talk from Penny. It's here that we decide that the battles from now on are going to be hard enough for us to keep a full team of 6 for the remainder of the playthrough. Before we can take on the main boss fights of the story, however, it's time to teach our team some new moves now that we have them all unlocked. But for that, we're going to need to go and hunt down a lot of Pokemon items. And we also, during this hunt, actually found our first shiny Pokemon, which was a Tadbulb. Which is funny because we only needed to defeat 3, and it just happened to be one of the 3 that I fast battled. I didn't even know it was shiny. After gathering all the items, we go ahead and teach Ice Punch, Drain Punch, and Trailblaze to Riolu, Surf and Ice Beam to Azurill, Earth Power to Bonsly, Thunderbolt to Pikachu, and Flamethrower to Igglybuff. With that, we go ahead and head for the Pokemon League, where we find Geeta is waiting outside for us. She lets us know how everything's going to work, and then we go ahead and take our little test before taking on the Elite Four. We did pass this nice and easy. It's not really that difficult. After that, we're able to go into the back room and finally take on the Elite Four. The first member of the Elite Four we need to take on is Rika, and this battle went over pretty easily. Riolu beat Whiscash, Azurill took down Camerupt, and then Riolu beat Donphan, Dugtrio, and Clodsire. With that, Rika had been beaten of the Elite Four. The second member we have to battle is Poppy, who is a Steel-type specialist. This battle also went over pretty well. Riolu beat Caparaja, Pichu beat Corviknight, Igglybuff and Riolu beat Bronzong after Pichu nuzzles it to paralyze it, and then Riolu went ahead and beat Magnezone and Tinkaton. Riolu is turning out to be quite the little MVP in these battles, I will say. But with that, Poppy had been defeated, and we're able to move on to the third Elite Four member, Larry. Again, actually, he's an Elite Four member and a gym leader. That's kind of cool. For the Larry battle, Riolu went ahead and beat Tropius, Staraptor takes down Pichu but it got paralyzed, so Bonsly was able to beat Staraptor, and then Riolu beats Altaria, followed by Azurill freezing and beating Oricorio, didn't plan on that ever happening, and then Azurill also nearly takes down Flamigo, but Bonsly had to come in and take it down with a Sucker Punch in the end. With 3 members down, we get to move on to the last member of the Elite Four, who is Hassel. Before we do that though, we added a Nevermelt Ice to Azurill for Ice Beam to make it a little stronger. With that, we go ahead and take on Hassel, and for this battle, Riolu went ahead and beat Noivern, Flapple, and Dragalge, which was awesome. Pichu then comes in to paralyze Haxorus, and then swaps immediately so we can keep our Pichu. Haxorus then takes out Bonsly and Azurill, but Toxel comes in and beats Haxorus, which was nice. We ended up losing a lot of Pokemon to Haxorus because of flinches, unfortunately. With that, we're able to bring in Pichu to paralyze Excalibur before it takes us out. We also had to go ahead and revive Bonsly, but then Bonsly was able to come in and Sucker Punch for the win. The first healable we've had to use in all of the Elite Four fights was a single revive. I'll take it, not bad. But with that, Hassel had been beaten of the Elite Four. With the Elite Four beaten, it was time to take on the top champion. Geeta was waiting for us. Once we make it to the top and the battle starts, we go ahead and lead with Bonsly since it's kind of unneeded for this fight. But unfortunately, Espathra was able to beat Pichu, Bonsly, and Toxel thanks to critical hits. But after that, we bring in Azurill, who was able to beat the Espathra, and then Riolu, who beat King Gambit and Go-Go. We go ahead and swap in for the Veluza because we knew it was going to be a problem being a Psychic type again. But we were able to bring in Azurill to go ahead and tank some hits while we used a Max Revive on Pichu and a Revive on Bonsly. Unfortunately, Azurill goes down to the Veluza, and then after that, Pichu and Bonsly together were able to take down Veluza. Finally, took out a lot of team members actually. With that, we go ahead and bring in Riolu, who easily beat Avalugg, and then Glamora comes in and takes down Riolu because it outsped me. Now we're in an emergency. I don't know how we're going to beat this battle in this fight without needing to reset. It took a little bit of work, But we went ahead and we revived Pichu so we can get a paralysis off and slow it down. Pichu ends up living on 1, so we can actually use another heal. So we went ahead and revived Bonsly, so we can go ahead and heal stall, and on moves when it was fully paralyzed, we were able to use heals on our other Pokemon. And with some of our team members healed up, we went ahead and hit it with Rock Tomb to slow it down even more, but Glamora eventually took down Bonsly in the end. With the slow from Rock Tomb and the paralysis, Riolu was able to come in and take down Glamora now that it was faster, and we officially beat the top champion. That battle was very scary. Once Riolu went down, I honestly thought we were going to lose that fight and have to restart. After that battle, Nemona of course runs into us to ask us how the fight went. And after a small talk, we now need to go ahead and defeat Nemona to round off this storyline. With the Elite Four out of the way, the next step is to beat all of our friends actually. We not only need to defeat Nemona, but also Penny and Arven as well. But because we're right here anyway, we decided to go ahead and fight Nemona first. We go ahead and head to the city and the battle begins. This fight is always a fun fight. Riolu went ahead and beat Lycanroc, Pawmot beats Bonsly and Toxel unfortunately, but then Riolu comes in, beats Pawmot, Dunsparce, and Orthworm, but then unfortunately her Goodra took out Riolu and Igglybuff. But Pichu was able to come in and paralyze the Goodra, which was nice. With that paralysis, it bought us a little bit of time to go ahead and revive Bonsly as well, which we were able to bring in and then slow down Goodra even more. Pichu ended up going down to the Goodra, but we ended up reviving it and Riolu. And then when Bonsly finally inevitably went down to the Goodra, Riolu is able to be swapped in and finishes off Goodra with an Ice Punch. All that's left is Skeledirge, which is why we revived Pichu, so we were able to swap in Pichu to paralyze it so that it would be slower than the rest of our team. Pichu, of course, goes down, but it does get off a bit of damage, luckily, which I honestly didn't expect. It's at this point I realized I'd probably have to revive Bonsly again. So, that's exactly what we did. We go ahead and revive Bonsly, but in the process, Azumarill goes down, and so does Riolu to the Skeledirge. Luckily, the Skeledirge's HP was so low that Bonsly was able to come in and finish it off with a single Sucker Punch. And with that, we beat Nemona, and the Victory Road quest line is officially done. Now, here's where we made a little bit of an oopsie. Because I wanted to go and fight Arven next. Because I knew that for the Penny fight, we were not only going to have to defeat Penny, but we would also have to defeat Director Clavel. But after the Nemona fight, you spawn inside of your room at the university, so when I went to leave, it literally forced us into the interaction with Director Clavel, who was waiting right outside. So it looks like we're going to go ahead and do Penny first. But of course we have to do the Director Clavel fight before that, which went over okay. Riolu beat Oranguru, Pichu goes down to Abomasnow, but then Bonsly comes in and is able to beat it. We after that decide it's time to revive Pichu, who we swap in to be able to paralyze Gyarados, but that wasn't really necessary because Pichu was actually able to take Gyarados down. But since it survived, we were actually able to use Pichu for the next Pokemon and paralyze his Houndoom. Unfortunately though, Houndoom did eventually beat Pichu, but because it was slowed enough, Riolu was able to come in and take Houndoom on pretty easily. I don't know how this keeps happening, but Azuril's full of surprises. I swapped in Azuril and it soloed his Poltegeist. I couldn't have even guessed that if I tried. But after the Poltegeist, the only Pokemon left is Meowscarada, who ends up taking down Azuril, but Riolu was able to come in and finish it off with an Ice Punch. The first battle for the Penny side quest has now been beaten, and we have defeated Director Clavel. After the fight, we go ahead and have a nice little chat with the director, and are allowed to go and find Penny at the schoolyard once it hits nighttime. I always liked the Penny battle because I loved evolutions, but this battle wound up being decently easy. Riolu beat Umbreon, Bonsly beat Flareon, Pichu beat Vaporeon, Riolu beat Leafeon, Bonsly beat Jolteon, and then Pichu paralyzes Sylveon but goes down to it. So we bring in Toxel to do some good damage, which nearly actually took it down, but ended up getting defeated. And then Riolu comes out and actually doesn't beat it. Riolu actually went down too, because I forgot that they had Quick Attack. So we wound up bringing in Azumarill to finish off the battle, and Azumarill was able to go ahead and beat the Sylveon for us, and Penny has officially been beaten. It's after this battle that we get some awesome backstory to Team Star, and this is some of the best backstory in the entire game. Like, I absolutely love this heartfelt moment between Penny and her friends. It's awesome. The characters in this game are top tier. From here, we go ahead and have another talk with Penny and the director, and then meet up with Penny for a talk just the two of us outside. And after that talk, we officially complete the Starfall Street storyline. only one storyline left to go before we reach the post-game, and that would be Arvin. Before we can take on Arvin though, we have to go with him and get into the professor's lab, and this is where we learn of the things that are going on inside of Area 0. Once we learn of Area 0, the professor asks for our help, and in order to find out whether or not we're worthy, Arvin challenges us to a battle. And with that, the battle begins. Riolu went ahead and beat Greedent, Bonsly beats Scovillain, Toadskruel takes down Azurill, but then Riolu comes in and finishes off Toadskruel, and then Riolu beats Garganackle, Cloyster, and Mabostiff. Riolu has really been useful for these fights. I'm glad we had Riolu available for this playthrough. But with that, we go ahead and beat Arvin and officially complete the Path of Legend storyline. Now it is time for the final challenge of this playthrough, Area 0. The first thing we need to do for this challenge is make our way to the entrance, which we do, and this unlocks the Way Home storyline. Nemona and Penny both show up as well, and they're already waiting for us at the entrance. With the gang all gathered, we go ahead and jump into Area 0 with all of our friends. And the final adventure officially begins. We have to make our way all the way down Area 0, stopping at 4 research stations where we need to disable 4 locks to get into the Zero Lab. On our way down, we ended up battling a Glamora with Nemona before finding the first of 4 research stations. We head inside, disable the lock, get a little talk from the professor, and then we get to move on. A little ways down into Area 0, we reach the second research station where we actually have to battle an Iron Bundle with Penny, our first interaction with a Paradox Pokemon. This battle goes over pretty easily though, and we're able to make our way inside where we disable the second lock and get a rundown of what the Paradox Pokemon actually are from the professor. After that rundown, we make our way down to the third research station, and for this one we have to battle an Iron Treads with Arvin for the second time, except this one's not really big. After we take it down, we head inside, disable the third lock, and with that, there's only one to go. So we continue making our way down, we find the 4th research lab, which is actually destroyed from an incident that happened that we'll find out more about later, but we disable the final lock and we're able to make our way down to the Zero Lab at the bottom. Just before we reach the Zero Lab, however, we actually run into another Miraidon, who goes into the Zero Lab for some reason. Kinda weird, but I'm not about to argue with a big scary monster. After Miraidon goes inside, a bunch of Pokemon come out of the gates. We end up battling with Nemona against an Iron Treads, battles with Penny against an Iron Hands, and battles with Arvin against an Iron Jugulus. And of course, we beat them all. Arvin goes ahead and takes on the rest of them, while we go ahead and enter the Zero Lab to meet the professor, who turns out is actually an AI robot. The professor tells us about the time machine, and we have to follow him down to turn it off. During the elevator ride, we're told by the professor what we must do, along with a couple of other unnecessary storyline filler questions. Once the elevator reaches the bottom, we find the time machine, where we have to put the Violet book in and attempt our final challenge, the battle with Professor Toro's AI. And with that, the final battle of the challenge officially begins. He starts out with Iron Moth, which Bonsly was able to take down. Riolu comes in and then beats Iron Thorns, followed by Pichu beating Iron Bundle, and then Iron Jugulus beating Pichu, which is unfortunate, but Toxel was able to paralyze it, but in the end it goes down as well. With the paralysis though, Bonsly was actually able to go ahead and take down Iron Jugulus. But now half of our team was dead, so we wind up using Bonsly to heal up some of our other team members. And then, Iron Hands literally kills everything. Literally everything. It's another fighting type, unfortunately, and it kills everything on our entire team. There's nothing we can do against it. We don't have any super effective damage, really. Other than Dazzling Gleam on Igglybuff, who just gets one shot anyway. So rather than leaving Area 0 to train up, we go ahead and try the battle again to see if there's a way for us to kind of brute force it in a way. But unfortunately, for the second battle, we get to Iron Hands, and it proceeds to wipe my entire team again. I go ahead and take a look in my bag and see what can be done, and we go ahead and toss all of our stat boosters and XP candies into Igglybuff in the hopes that it can live a hit or two and get off some Dazzling Gleams to take out the Iron Hands. Unfortunately, that didn't work either because we lost again. Looking at my moveset, it was clear that the only way we were going to win this fight without cheesing it was going to be to throw ourselves at the fight repeatedly until we got a freeze on Iron Hands from Ice Punch. So it was time to just throw ourselves at the battle until that happened. And it happened once. And then he thawed the very next turn, so it didn't matter. After 10 straight losses, we decide that, okay, It's either we heal stall or leave area 0 and train everything up to level 100. I didn't want to have to go to level 100, so heal stall it is. And to be honest, I don't think level 100 would have even helped anyway, because the problem is we can't offensively beat it quick enough, and getting to level 100 wasn't going to change that. Unfortunately, the fighting type has been a reoccurring problem through the entire playthrough. The final Starfall badge took me hours to complete. So, it was time to heal stall. Iron Hands has 50 available moves to use. 10 Drain Punches, 15 Thunder Punches, 15 Iron Heads, and 10 Fake Outs. Luckily, we did have enough healing items to make this work. And we didn't actually need it to struggle all that much, because once it got to Fake Out, we were able to heal up the rest of our team using Bonsly, because Fake Out literally did like no damage. Eventually, after our whole team was revived, Iron Hands officially struggled for the first time and took itself out. We had finally beaten Iron Hands after like 3 hours. But the fight's not over. We actually have one more Pokemon left, which is Iron Valiant, another fighting type. Hooray. Fortunately though, we were able to beat it. However, it took out Pichu and Toxel, but Toxel was able to paralyze it by living on 1 HP luckily. It then proceeds to continue to take out Riolu, Igglybuff, and Azumarill. So I bring out the Bonsly. I heal stall while I wait for it to be fully paralyzed, and every time it did, I was able to get a guaranteed hit of damage in. Little by little, we were going to take this thing down. And with that, Professor Toro had been beaten the first time. Anyway, we had to use cheesy heal strats in order to beat it, but I literally don't think it was going to be possible any other way. If it wasn't for the fighting types, I think it would have been possible. And the worst part is, I still think Professor Sada would have been harder to beat if we had chosen to play Scarlet instead, because her Sandy Shocks is super effective against like half the team or something like that. But after we beat that fight, our friends arrive at the time machine to give us a little moral support. The robot apologizes to Arven, and then the room starts going all weird with security failures. He then challenges us to a battle against his Miraidon, which we have to use our Miraidon for. Not really a baby Pokemon, but you know, we don't really have a choice, I guess. Now this battle, I don't actually think you can lose. A couple moves later, some cheering from our friends, and a terastallization, we beat the Professor's Miraidon. After the battle, the Professor disappears into the time machine, followed by us leaving Area 0 and having some final words with our friends, and with that, the credits roll, and the challenge is officially over. So to answer the question, can you beat Scarlet and Violet with just baby Pokemon? No! You literally can't, because you're actually forced to use Miraidon at the end, unfortunately. But I mean, if you don't count that, then you sure can. Our team wound up being a level 80 Bonsly with a Hard Stone, a level 88 Igglybuff, a level 89 Riolu with a Muscle Band, a level 78 Toxel, a level 79 Pichu, and a level 82 Azumarill with a Never Melt Ice. And of course, shout out to the level 8 Happiny for guarding the PC boxes the whole time. This challenge took 29 hours and 32 minutes, with one shiny Pokemon in the end, which is actually a lot longer than I thought it would take. If you want to try this challenge for yourselves, I recommend you do. It was a whole lot of fun. And if you do, let me know down in the comments below. As well as if you have any other playthrough challenges you want to see me do, let me know down in the comments below. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next video.